I served 2 tours in Iraq. I put it in quotes because who did I serve? The special interest who wanted war. How did they get that war? They lied to us. They said Saddam had weapons of mass destruction and he was tied to 9/11. Both lies, and we all know it now. Years later, of course, after all the damage has been done. The same, I believe, is happening with the Ukrainians. The EU, NATO, the US, they don't give a damn about Ukraine. They're using it as a bulwark against Russia because they have an agenda to take out Vladimir Putin.
Our guest today is Lucas Gage. He is a 2-time veteran of the Iraq War, twice deployed, came back, found out that he was lied to by his government, and now he's making it a mission to tell the truth about how our government lies to us, and especially about this war that we're currently facing in Ukraine, the NATO-backed war in Ukraine, the NATO-backed proxy war in Ukraine, and how many other proxy wars the United States is involved with around the world. Lucas, welcome to Redacted Conversations.
It's an honor to be here, Clayton. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for your service, and thank you for your story. I learned about you through a viral video. I think that many people may have learned about you because of that viral video. Just first of all, tell us about that video, and then I want to go back into your history a little bit. This is not new to you, but this sort of unfolded over the past few weeks, right?
Yeah. So I've done activism before in the past, and anti-war for Syria. And when Trump was president, I was telling Trump, don't go to Syria, don't do it, don't bomb anyone, don't fall for the trap. It's the same script, and we'll get into that as well. And so I've done it for years, and then I was like getting the death threats and people hating me, getting called names, certain organizations calling you certain names, and like, you're this, you're that. As we see today, the same thing's happening. So I said, you know what, maybe I'm done for now, and I'm going to just go write books and, make self-help content. And then I was telling my wife a few weeks ago, I said, you know what? I think I have to say something about this war. I'm going to be very neutral. I'm going to say something. I'm going to care about the Ukrainians and the Russian people. And I told one of my friends on Twitter, I said, I got a small account, but maybe we can get this out there. So I told her, and she goes, yeah, I'll help. She has 200,000 followers. So I said, I made the video. She looked at it. This is excellent. So she retweeted it, and then it took off. If you really care about the Ukrainian people like you claim you do, then listen to me very carefully. My name is Lucas Gage. I served 2 tours in Iraq. I put it in quotes because who did I serve? The special interest who wanted war. How did they get that war? They lied to us. They said Saddam had weapons of mass destruction and he was tied to 9/11. Both lies, and we all know it now. Years later, of course, after all the damage has been done. The same, I believe, is happening with the Ukrainians. The EU, NATO, the US, they don't give a damn about Ukraine. They're using it as a bulwark against Russia because they have an agenda to take out Vladimir Putin. And they're saying, look, the Ukrainians are winning the war. They're pushing here and they're pushing there. That's when Putin has his hands tied behind his back in a special operation, which is limited in nature. But now that he's annexed these regions, whether you agree with it or not, Putin can unleash the full military might of Russia. And the Ukrainians have no chance whatsoever. And that's the lie the media is telling you, that they do have a chance. They don't. In fact, the only way Ukraine has a chance against Russia is if they drag us all into the war with them. And you know what that means? World War III. And you know what else? Unlike Saddam, who didn't have weapons of mass destruction, Russia does. And if they're used, it's not good for anybody, especially the Ukrainians, because who do you think are going to be hit first? So if you really care about the Ukrainians, stop filling their heads up with fantasies. Stop believing the obvious lies of the West. My God, the U.S. just threw Ukraine under the bus about this assassination of Dugina. What do you think? They care? They don't care about the Ukrainians. The EU doesn't care, NATO doesn't care, and the United States most certainly doesn't care about Ukraine or anyone else for that matter. The only thing these people care about, these traitors and globalists at the top, are war, profits, and control. That's all they care about. Don't fall for the lies. If you truly care about the Ukrainians and the Russians, especially the civilians, you want to talk peace right now. Let's push for peace, not for war. Because my message was peaceful. It was about, if you care about the Ukrainian people, we have to have peace talks. It's not about arming more people. It's not about more killing. It's about sitting down and talking about peace and being honest. You can't tell me that you think the Ukrainians could win this war, by themselves. They cannot win.
Right.
You got to drag everyone in, and that's going to cause a world war, and it could lead to nuclear war. And so if you care about people, especially the Ukrainians, and I'm trying to defend them as well, you don't want this to continue. So I made that video, went viral, people agreed with it, and here I am again in the geopolitical sphere talking about these things, which I think are important because, as you mentioned, I was a victim of lies of the war in Iraq. We all know no weapons of mass destruction, right? And Bush even jokes about it. Oh, they weren't here. Oh, no, they're not over here either. I don't know if you saw that little joke he made.
Right.
But millions died for this joke, and it's horrible. And we see the same narratives with Syria and all these other wars that are proxy wars that we have seen in our past that are still going on, by the way. And now we have this Ukrainian war, and it's like, when does this ever end? So I had to say something, and therefore I did, and here I am now with you. So.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you spoke out. And first of all, before we get into your time in Iraq, what was the response to this viral video? What did you hear from people? You're simply calling for peace, which is what we do on this show, on our live show every day, but we are advocating for peace, right? What was the response that you received?
Overwhelmingly positive. So most people who are sane were like, yeah, this is right. We got to sit down and talk. We agree with you. Of course, the people calling you Putin fascist, lover, Kremlin chill, bot, even though I'm a real person in video, how can I be a bot? But anyway,
right.
So yeah, but mostly overwhelmingly positive, like 98% positive, 2% negative, like you're shill, Russia could leave at any time. And most overwhelmingly positive, and that's why it went viral, because it resonated with people. Even if the worst case scenario is true about Ukraine, Russia, people don't want war at all. Especially America, I think we're sick of war, and our leaders just keep causing it and funding it. And we're like, what about us? Our diesels are out of stock is going out. We're having all these problems at home, and you want to fund billions over here? We can't afford things here. What's going on? So I think in general, people have war fatigue, at least in our country.
So you two tours in Iraq. When you got in, what was your thought process about joining the military? Why did you want to serve?
Well, I was 17 when 9/11 took place. So I was there when I was actually at the dentist, and I heard the first plane strike. I was like, wow, that's a really bad accident. And I think everyone on the planet thought it was an accident.
Right.
Then the second one hit. I was like, uh-oh. So when I left the dentist, I lived in New Jersey. I still live in New Jersey now, but at the time I lived in Warren, New Jersey. And Warren is pretty high above, I guess the sea level. So on my way back home from the dentist, I was at high school at the time. I stopped at Washington Rock. It's like this memorial where Washington overlooked to see the British or whatever. And I saw New York from a distance, and I saw all the smoke. I was like, wow, this is crazy. So I went to school. My sister was still at school. I went to go check on her if she's okay. Then I went home and I watched, the towers as they were on fire. I said, this is terrible. And I'm like, what if these things collapse? I have no engineering. I have no idea how it works. And they did. I go, oh my God, all those people died. So at that time, I was like 17. I was like, I have to do something. I got to fight for my country. Now, my grandfather was an Air Force major, intelligence officer. His father was a U.S. Marine. So he fought in the Spanish War and all that. My father skipped it, whatever. But, it's in my blood to fight. It's in my blood to be a patriot. So it's like most people at that time, once we saw the towers collapse, once Bush said, we got to get those terrorists, it was on.